السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll continue with the fiqh of worship from the book الدروس المهمة لعامة الأمة, the important lessons for the Ummah, for the Muslims, for every Muslim to know the mandatory knowledge. And last time we met reading this book was we talked about the Sunan, or the recommended acts in the Salah. And this was the 10th lesson. And then the 11th lesson is مبطلات الصلاة. مبطلات الصلاة. And مبطلات is the plural of مبطل, which what negates the Salah, what makes the Salah invalid. And since we talked about the conditions of the Salah, the pillars of the Salah, the obligatory matters in Salah, and we talked about the recommended acts in the Salah, now he mentions what negates the Salah, what breaks the Salah completely. And there are 8 things that breaks the Salah. He said the first one is الكلام العمد مع الذكر والعلم أما الناس والجاهل فلا تبطل صلاته بذلك, which means to speak intentionally مع الذكر, knowingly, not forgetfully. So to intentionally speak in the Salah, knowingly, not forgetfully, that breaks the Salah. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إن هذه الصلاة لا يصلح فيها كلام الناس. This Salah, it does not fit in it the people's talk. So whoever speaks anything that has a meaning intentionally, that breaks the Salah. Now, I'm not talked about, is it 2 letters, or, if someone says something that means something, whether he says, say, for example, no, or someone would say anything, it doesn't have to be a complete sentence. But if someone says it forgetfully or not knowing the ruling that it breaks the Salah, his Salah is not broken as a result of this. So, say, for example, someone forgetfully, he was not focused and something happened and he just said it, or he didn't know the rulings, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam as-Sulami, when he didn't know that this ruling has been established in the Salah, because they used to say things in the Salah before, and then the verses of the Quran revealed, وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ, stand in the Salah qanitin, in devotion. So they were forbidden from saying anything. So he didn't know, and he came and he was in the Salah, and someone sneezed, and he said to him, يَرْحَمُكَ اللَّهُ, in the Salah. So the people looked at him, to condemning what he did. So he said that people start looking at me. So he said to, even added more, saying وَثُقْلَ أُمِّيَهِ بِمَاذَا تَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْهِ. He says like something, woe to me, or something like this. Why are you looking at me? So they kept on trying to make him be silent, and they even start hitting their thighs with their hands to make him silent. So he realized that they're trying to make him silent. So he was silent. And after the Salah, the Prophet ﷺ explained to him. And he said, I've never seen someone like the Prophet ﷺ. فَوَاللَّهِ مَا ضَرَبَنِي مَا كَهَرَنِي. The Prophet ﷺ, wallahi, he did not beat me up. He did not scolded me. He did not do anything except that he said to me, إن هذه الصلاة لا يصلح فيها كلام الناس. This Salah does not befit it for having the worldly or the people's speech, but rather it's the qira'at of Al-Quran and then the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Prophet ﷺ did not command him to repeat the Salah. Why? Because he did not know the ruling. And the second thing is, someone said it forgetfully. The ulama, they took as an evidence for that is that when the Prophet ﷺ made salam after 2 rak'ah in Salat al-Dhuhr, and the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, they spoke to the Prophet ﷺ. So then he stood up and he continued the Salah. So this is again something that the Prophet ﷺ did. So, and as the Sheikh said, as a principle in matters of the deen, وأما الناسي والجاهل فلا تبطل صلاته بذلك. الناسي, the one that is forgetful or not knowing the ruling, his salah is not invalid because رفع عن أمتي الخطأ والنسيان. As the Prophet ﷺ said, it has been relieved from my ummah the mistake and or the mistakes and the forgetful matters. So this is the first thing that breaks the salah, speaking in the salah. The second one is الضحك. الضحك is laughing. So laughing, and that's different than smiling, right? So if a person smiles in the salah, that doesn't break the salah. And of course, the salah is supposed to be with khushu', with devotion, and being focused in the salah. So if someone start laughing in the salah, that negates this, negates the devotion. So, and laughing is when someone would make noise as a result of, laughing in such a way that breaks the salah. And some said that a letter has to come out, but there's no evidence of a letter has to come out. This is different. But just smiling like this, and if a person is able to control himself, then the salah is still valid. The third thing that negates the salah is al-akl. Eating is one of the mubtalat of the salah. And this is mainly in the fard, of course, and in the nafl also, in the optional salah, a person should not eat or drink. And if someone, I'm just saying that because somebody might come across of some statements or so that some of the early generations of Islam, they used to take a drink in the night prayer. First of all, it's an optional salah in the night prayer, not in the fard. And there's no hadith or ayah of the Quran that states this, not from the actions of the Prophet ﷺ. It's just some of the actions of the early generations of Islam. And to add to this is because of the long salah that they will be standing, not just someone just praying a normal salah and then he's thirsty so he drinks. Something that a person is studying the entire night and making salah. So if you took a sip of water while standing, right? So in the night prayer, some had done this, but of course, what is correct as an opinion is that it's forbidden for the person to eat and drink during the salah. And there's no difference between the fard salah or the nafl salah. This is something to stay away from. Otherwise it negates the salah, breaks the salah. And the same thing with which is number 4, drinking. Number 5, انكشاف العورة. انكشاف العورة. An inkishaf from kashafa, when something is revealed, something is shown after it's been covered. And al-awra is the private part. Because as we heard from the conditions of the salah is to cover the awra. Satru al-awra, which is, satr is the opposite of inkishaf or kashf. So we are commanded to cover our private parts. That's for the men from the navel to the knees and to have something on the shoulders. And for the women, their entire body except the face during the salah, from the beginning to the end. So if any of the awra shown, that breaks the salah. But if it's a very short period of time and a person covered it right away, then the salah is valid, right? So if it's someone, for example, his awra shown and he covered it right away, that doesn't break the salah. But if it's a long time, or from the awra, that is, they call it al-mughallada, the private parts, then that breaks the salah. So this is inkishaf al-awra. And then number 6, al-inhiraf al-kathiri عن جهة القبلة. Al-inhiraf al-kathir. Al-inhiraf is to turn away a lot from facing the qibla. Al-inhiraf, as we know that facing the qibla is also one of the conditions of the salah. And for the conditions of the salah, we need to be applying it the entire salah. So from takbiratul ihram, from the beginning till the end of the salah, a person should face the qibla. A small or slight moving oneself, a slight movement away from the qibla does not harm. Or a person is not facing the qibla exactly it's not harmful. It's okay to one's best ability, of course, right? So, but if someone is completely away from the Qibla, like as it's east and he goes west or something like this, then that invalidates the Salah. And there's rulings with this. Of course, if a person is resident in the place, then he has to, of course, face the Qibla. If a person in a place where he doesn't know where the Qibla, he has to put the effort to ask people, use some of the means. And if a person doesn't use any of these means and he wrongfully face something else, then his salah is not valid. But if he took the means and he did not face the qibla, so the salah is valid. And if he realized during the salah, he should move during the salah, or you see someone not facing the qibla in the salah, you can direct them to face the qibla, and they don't have to repeat the salah over. So this makes the salah valid. Number 7, he says العبث الكثير المتوالي في الصلاة. العبث الكثير المتوالي في الصلاة. 3 things. العبث is things that is against seriousness. When someone plays around or someone is doing things that is not appropriate. So العبث is to move a lot, or to as we saw, we talked about speaking, so or eating or drinking. Then this is العبث is to just move around. Move the hands, just moving in one's position, things like this. So it has to be kathir, it has to be a lot. It has to be mutawali. Mutawali, that means one after the others. So that means if it's one incident, like for example, a person moved his hand to scratch his head, it doesn't break the salah. But he kept on scratching his head, scratching his head, scratching his head. Like this breaks the salah. And what makes it kathir, what makes it a lot, is what's seen to be something that is quite a lot. It's like when you're watching someone making salah, you would realize that he's moving too much. That invalidates the salah. And some of the ulama, to make it more precise, they said 3 movements in every position in the salah, but there's no evidence of the 3. Is just to make it 3 is plural, so they said 3 is kathir. But it's really what makes a person look like he's moving a lot in the salah. So because the salah again is supposed to be with devotion. And if, as it's mentioned, إذا خشع قلب هذا لخشعت جوارحه. If the heart of a man is devoted in the salah, his physical body would also be devoted in the salah and not moving. And the 8th mubtil, or the 8th negation of the salah, is intiqad al-tahara, is when someone breaks their tahara. So this is, of course, breaks the salah. As the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, لا تقبل صلاة من أحدث حتى يتوضأ. That if someone breaks his wudu, his salah is not valid till he makes wudu. And he has to have the tahara, the purification, from the beginning to the end of the salah. And that's the norm. If someone has an exception, exceptional situation, like for example, salas al-bawl, salas al-riyah, someone that is not able to control the urination, or having also a disease, is sick, then it's a different situation. He has to make wudu after the adhan of every salah, and then to secure himself, and then after that to make salah, and it doesn't break the salah if something comes out as a result of that, because you already have a condition. Now, so these are the 8 mubtilat of the salah. The first one is intentionally speaking. Number 2, al-dhahik, laughing. Number 3, al-akl, eating. Number 4, al-shurb, drinking. Number 5, inkishafu al-awra, for the private part to shown during the salah. Al-inhirafu al-kathiri an al-qibla. Number 6, to move a lot from the qibla. And number 7, al-abath al-kathir, to move around a lot continuously in the salah. And the 8th one is intiqad al-tahara, to break the tahara, to break the purification. Inshallah, we'll stop here and then we'll continue next time. Then we have the Quran session in 10 minutes, inshallah. This is the book of Ad-Durus al-Muhimma li'ammat al-Ummah by Sheikh Ibn Baz rahimahullah. The important lessons for the masses of the Ummah, for the entire Ummah. that we were going through in fiqh of worship. بارك الله فيكم. طيب، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.